At the edge of a grand old forest, full of wildlife, there is a charming little cottage, almost hidden from view by trees, bushes, birds and butterflies. Decorated with carpets, curtains, shelves and tables, all from a time long since past. It is here, within these walls, Bellassini has managed to travel to places most of us have never dared dream of. For this is Gran's house, a house which is home to thousands upon thousands of old books. Every shelf, on every wall, floor to ceiling, is packed solid with Gran's mysterious old books. She must have a copy of every fairy tale, fable, myth and adventure ever written. Each day, Gran is able to whisk Bellassini away to far-off lands simply by reading aloud from one of her amazing books, set in times long ago when magic and dreams ruled the world. Some days, Gran would have Bellassini on the edge of a seat with tales of fire-breathing dragons, goblins, imps and elves, while on others she would just sit spellbound, listening to amazing stories of handsome young princes searching mysterious lands far and wide for their long-lost princesses. After each amazing tale, Gran would always take Bellassini's hands into her own and quietly whisper, "Princess, all those who have lost faith in their dreams and wishes are destined to be trapped in reality forever." Cinderella changed her life with a single wish, and so can you, so long as you keep believing in your dreams and wishes. Gran did not believe that wishes should be saved until your birthday, a rainbow or a falling star. She would always tell Bellassini, "You can never make too many wishes." And what was wrong with the world today was that too many people had lost faith in their own dreams. Gran truly believes if we all keep wishing long and hard enough, all our dreams and wishes really will come true. So each day, with her hands firmly clasped inside Gran's, Bellassini would close her eyes, look towards the heaven, and recite her ever-growing list of wishes. Each afternoon, after hearing one of Gran's amazing stories and making her wishes, Bellassini would accompany Gran on her walk through the magnificent rainforest, across the road from her cottage. Together, they must have walked through that forest more than 1,000 times, yet Bellassini cannot remember a single visit where Gran did not reveal something new, a plant, flower, bird or small creature which had gone unseen on all previous visits. Bellassini was sure that these mysterious old woods were Gran's enchanted forest, a secret place of mystical adventure. A few years ago, on one such walk, Bellassini remembers Gran coming across a grand old oak tree which had shed all its leaves and looked as if it was about to wither and die. Gran was heartbroken to see the tall old tree that had shaded her for so many years in such a state. Bellassini will never forget the emotion on Gran's face as she tenderly wrapped her arms around its ailing trunk, causing the 2 teardrops which had welled in her eyes to splash down on the exposed roots of the dying tree. The next day, as if by magic, the old tree was once again dancing to and fro in the wind. As they approached, every new leaf on the tree madly waved and fluttered as its trunk bowed gracefully in the direction of Gran. Bellassini was in no doubt this was not a result of a sudden gust of wind. The magnificent old tree was merely expressing its gratitude to the kind-hearted angel who loved and cared for all the creatures of the forest. Gran responded with a smile and blew a kiss, which was carried by a small puff of wind to every dancing leaf on the tree. Bellassini has inherited Gran's love of the forest and their trees. So each day she always did everything she possibly could to protect and nurture all the trees and creatures of Gran's enchanted forest. Bellassini's mother thinks Gran's stories and escapades in the forest may be a result of her ever-increasing age and illness. And maybe she was right. Gran had of late been very ill. Her hair had turned completely grey, and her once beautiful face was now hidden beneath scores of wrinkles. A gypsy could surely tell you more about the future from the spellbinding lines running across Gran's face than she could from 1,000 palms. However, behind Gran's wide-rimmed spectacles, her remarkable emerald green eyes still sparkled like moonlight dancing on a lake of glass. Each day, after her walk in the forest with Gran, Bellassini rushes home to chat online with all her friends about all the different things she may have discovered with Gran that day. Bellassini has thousands of friends all over the world on social media. She likes to think of her laptop and mobile phone as her own little pieces of magic. Just by typing in a few seemingly magical words, they were able to take her anywhere in the world. They are her source of far-off adventure and fun, her looking glass into the world beyond, her very own crystal balls. A quick glance around Bellassini's bedroom readily confirms Gran's influence. It is filled with dolls and figurines from countless movies and books. However, there is one very special figurine which takes pride of place on her shelves. An old and somewhat tattered chimney sweep boy. It is definitely not the cleanest, newest, nor best looking of her toys. In fact, it would be very easy to believe this figurine really had been up a few dirty chimneys. It originally belonged to Gran, who for years had it on display in her living room. For some unknown reason, every time Bellassini visited Gran's house, she was drawn to the boy. She held him ever so tightly through each and every one of Gran's fantastic tales. On her 5th birthday, Gran decided to give the doll to Bellassini. She still remembers Gran's words as she passed her the doll. Never judge anybody by his or her appearance. Their true beauty will always lay hidden within. Bellassini's parents live next door to Gran, so her upstairs bedroom window opens up over the rainforest. She tries never to close that window, as each morning many of her furry little friends from the forest climb through it to visit her. Her 2 special friends are a beautiful bluebird and a playful little squirrel, which are sure to climb through the window each morning. Every morning, the high-spirited bluebird, perched atop Bellassini's bookshelf, would whistle a set of merry tunes it had learned from Bellassini, while the mischievous little squirrel, who Bellassini had aptly named Mr. Squirrel, would drop gum nuts onto her pillow. There surely could be no better way in the world to be woken up each morning. Bellassini's life was almost perfect. It was the morning of Bellassini's 15th birthday. Mr. Squirrel and Bluebird had invited all the little creatures from the forest to help throw her a party. They all tiptoed through her open window very early that morning, waiting patiently for the sun to peep up over the horizon. As the first sunbeams began to dance across Bellassini's pajama-clad body, laying snugly asleep in her bed, Bluebird flapped her wings and began to whistle Happy Birthday as loud as her little lungs would permit. Bellassini's sleep-filled eyes were greeted with the vision of 100 little creatures and birds, sitting patiently atop every vantage point within her room. At first, she thought it was just another marvellous dream. That was until a misdirected gum nut dropped by Mr. Squirrel hit her on the nose. Bellassini then realised she had awoken to the most fantastic birthday surprise ever. As she sat up in bed, all the little creatures rushed forward to present her with their special gifts. There were red flowers, yellow ones, pink ones and blue, along with gifts of marbles, buttons, shiny stones, and even a little lost shoe. Her room was filled with the excited chatter and song of 100 different birds and animals, all vying for her attention. While singing and dancing around the room, Bellasini kissed and cuddled every little creature that was helping make this the most exciting birthday surprise ever. In fact, she was so excited, she almost forgot about the time. After quickly taking a shower and throwing on her clothes, she hurriedly gave each and every little friend, old and new, one last kiss and cuddle goodbye. They all sat ever so quietly, watching her every move as she turned to wave goodbye. Oh, how Bellasini wished they could understand her, for then she could tell them how dearly she loved them all. Although, just maybe, the heartfelt smile on her face as she waved goodbye expressed more love than any words she could have spoken. Birthday or not, Bellasini knew she would have to hurry, as she still had a lot to do before school. So she lovingly blew them all one last kiss and headed downstairs for breakfast. As she arrived at the foot of the stairs, her mother called out, "Happy birthday, Pumpkin." Her mother always calls her Pumpkin. Cinderella is Bellasini's favourite fairy tale princess. As a young girl, she would steal little pumpkins from her mother's pantry to store in her room. Once there, she would sit for hours wishing for her fairy godmother to appear and change her pumpkin into a beautiful horse-drawn carriage which could whisk her away to some far-off adventure-filled land. Bellasini still idolizes Cinderella, believing her to be the most perfect fairy tale princess there has ever been. In fact, she still keeps a small pumpkin on her dresser. She has never stopped wishing that maybe one day, even if it was just for a day, she will be able to follow in the footsteps of her beloved fairy tale princess. Just as Bellasini was about to step through the kitchen door, a deafening bang and crash of plates stopped her dead in the tracks. As she peered in, her eyes were greeted with a very unfamiliar sight. Her usually well-organised and spotlessly clean mother was standing motionless in the middle of the kitchen, covered from head to toe in a sticky combination of flour, eggs, milk and chocolate. The room was thick with flour dust, while the shelves, walls, ceilings and floors were covered with the same sticky goo and dust that covered her mother. There was not a square inch in the entire kitchen which was not coated with this sweet-smelling ooze. "Mum," uttered Bellasini, trying to hold back her laughter. What happened?" The ghostly, flour-covered silhouette of her mother fell back into one of the kitchen chairs. "It was supposed to be a birthday surprise breakfast, Pumpkin," she sighed. "It all started with the electric mixer. As soon as I put all the ingredients into the bowl, for no apparent reason, it just sped up and splattered them all over the walls. I couldn't turn it off. I had to rip the plug out of the wall. So I decided to mix the ingredients by hand. That worked, but when I placed the muffins in the microwave, the plate at the bottom span so fast it blew them out all over the place. So I tried just cooking your muffins in the oven. You're not going to believe this, but when I put the muffins inside to cook, the oven fan suddenly started to spin 1,000,000 miles per hour, blowing the mixture all over the walls and ceiling. Everything, and I mean everything electrical, has suddenly gone crazy," she concluded, throwing her hands up into the air in disbelief. As Bellasini's eyes began to scan the room, the extent of this cooking disaster became obvious. Cautiously tiptoeing into the kitchen, trying to dodge the sticky drops of cake mix falling from the ceiling, past the juicer which had splattered its contents all over the walls, she reached over and turned off the howling coffee grinder. Then stepping over the electric can opener, which had fallen to the floor after spinning a full can of beans everywhere, she pulled the plug on the electric kettle, which was still spewing boiling water and steam throughout the room. Desperately trying to hold back her laughter as she caught the toast shot across the room by the toaster, she chuckled. "Mum, I think you need to get Dad to take a look at these appliances." Still slumped in the kitchen chair, she explained that he was already at work. Apparently he'd been called into the office urgently during the night to fix some type of software glitch which was crippling the computers of the bank where he worked. "Well, don't you think we should at least call him?" continued Bellassini, tiptoeing through the sticky mess, trying not to touch anything. Throwing her hands once more into the air in despair, her mother explained the phone didn't work either. It appeared that everything electrical in the house had developed some type of crazy technical glitch. As she listened to her mother's desperate explanation, Bellassini attempted to call her father from her mobile phone. However, it too had gone faulty. "I would really love to stay and help you clean up, Mum," explained Bellassini, scanning the enormous mess. "But I am already running late for school." As she was hastily cramming the slices of toast she had caught earlier into her bag, she leaned forward, kissed her mother goodbye, and headed to school. Each morning, Bellassini takes a shortcut through the rainforest to school. It did not really save her any time, as she would spend any time she saved playing with the little friends and birds along the way. However, there could be no better way to start a school day than to follow the cobblestone path through the middle of Grand's enchanted rainforest. In recent times, Bellassini had met a new friend in the forest named Clint, a little 5-year-old boy who had been diagnosed with cancer. He is undergoing treatment each day at the local hospital. However, the treatments are making him very sick and tired, and now he has a lot of trouble just walking a few steps. The only way he is able to get to the forest each day is with his mother pushing him in a little wheelchair. Still, every morning that he's well enough, Clint insists his mother bring him to the forest to see Bellassini and her animal friends. He loves the way she is able to call over all the different creatures and feed them. Clint knew today was Bellassini's birthday, and even though he was feeling the pain of his illness, he pleaded with his mother to push him to the forest. "Bellassini, Bellassini, I've got a birthday present for you," called out Clint from his wheelchair. "Wow, you've got me a present," she excitedly responded, lifting him from his wheelchair. "What have you got me?" He leaned back in Bellassini's arms and pulled out a small flat parcel which he had obviously wrapped himself. "Well, thank you very much," smiled Bellassini, giving him a kiss on the cheek. What could this be?" she asked playfully, gently lowering him back into his chair. "You have to open it, Sini," replied Clint with a cheeky smile. "I'm not going to tell you. It's a surprise." "Wow, I love surprises," giggled Bellassini, as she slowly started to unwrap Clint's secret present. She carefully lifted every piece of colourful tape so as not to tear a single piece of Clint's homemade wrapping paper. "Faster, faster, Sini," shouted Clint, growing impatient with Bellassini's games. Inside, mounted in a frame that Clint had built himself, was a photograph his mother had taken of Bellassini and Clint feeding the animals the week before. At the bottom of the photo, Clint had carefully written the words, "So you can always take me with you to feed the animals." A small tear welled in the corner of Bellassini's eyes as she once again hugged Clint tightly. "Thank you very much, my little man. This is the nicest present you could possibly have given me. But does this mean you are not going to keep visiting me and our little friends in the forest each day?" "I hope I can, Sini," replied Clint. "But the doctors say I might have to live at the hospital for a while." Clint paused for a second before continuing. "Will you come and visit me and maybe sneak in some of our friends from the forest inside your bag." "Of course I will, Clint," replied Bellassini, fighting back her tears. "But you will be better in no time. Then you will be able to visit all our friends yourself." "I hope you're right, Sini," replied Clint, glancing down at all the little creatures which now surrounded his wheelchair. Bellassini took the toast that she had earlier put in a bag and gently placed it in Clint's hand. "Come on, Clint. I think our furry little friends are waiting for their breakfast." Clint loved feeding all the creatures of the rainforest. In no time at all, he would find his wheelchair surrounded by lively little birds, flapping and whistling their merry tunes, impatiently waiting for Clint to feed them. Baby ducks, squirrels, possums and bunnies soon emerged from behind every bush and tree, searching for the goodies that Clint was sure to have hidden in his pockets. Suddenly, Bellassini glanced at a watch. "Wow, is that the time? I'm going to be late for school. I'm sorry, Clint, but I'm going to have to run. But before I go," she continued, looking into his bright blue eyes, "what do we always do?" "We make a wish," shouted Clint, moving towards her with his arms outstretched. Bellassini clasped Clint's fragile little hands inside her own, in exactly the same manner as Gran does with hers, while saying, "Now close your eyes, look towards the heavens, and make a wish." As he leaned back into his wheelchair in the morning sun, Bellassini was presented with the heartbreaking picture of a spirited young boy trapped inside a disease-ravaged body. "How could this be?" she thought to herself. "It's just not fair." She felt so helpless. Clint closed his eyes and shouted out as loud as his fragile voice would allow, I wish, oh how I wish that one day I will be well enough to go to school like everyone else." Bellassini was just about to speak when Clint, with his eyes still closed, tightly continued, "I wish that Bellassini and my friends in the forest never ever get sick." Clint opened his eyes to seek Bellassini's approval for wishing more than one wish. "Is it okay that I made 2 wishes?" Trying desperately to hold back her tears, Bellassini pulled Clint into her embrace. "Of course it is, Clint. My Gran says everyone can wish as many wishes as they want." After one more hug and kiss on the cheek, Bellassini continued, "I am sorry, my little man, but I really have to go. Thank you so much for my present." Clint's mother hugged Bellassini and quietly thanked her for all the happiness she was able to bring her sick little boy, promising she would bring him back tomorrow so she could see him before he moved into the hospital. As Bellassini emerged from the other side of the rainforest, near the school gate, she could see her best friend Gemma waiting patiently. Gemma, or the star as she is fondly referred to by her friends, is the movie queen of the school. If anyone needs to know anything about any Hollywood actor or actress, they just ask Gemma. She is a member of just about every fan page of every actor and actress who is on social media. "Happy birthday, Sini," shrieked Gemma, catching sight of Bellassini emerging from the forest. "Thanks, Gemma," replied Bellassini glumly. "What's the matter, girl? It's your birthday. You're supposed to be happy." "I'm sorry, but you know the little boy I meet in the forest each morning who has cancer? Well, it seems that it's getting worse, and now he will have to stay in hospital for a while. It doesn't sound good, Gemma." "Sini," sighed Gemma, "how I wish there was something I could do to help. You know I would give anything to help Clint, but some things are just beyond either one of us to change." "I guess you are right," replied Bellassini, picking up her bag. "But I so wish I could change this one thing." "Okay," shrieked Gemma, sensing it was time to change the mood of the conversation. "Let's get with it, girl." "Oh, I nearly forgot," replied Bellassini, glancing down at her watch. "I have to call my dad." But my phone is not working. Can I borrow yours, Gemma? I'm sorry, Sini. It's not only your phone. The mobile phones and wireless networks of the entire town aren't working. Nobody's phone is working. I tell you, something very strange is going on today, Gemma, responded Bellassini as she began to describe in detail the events of a morning at her house. At the end of a story, they both screamed with delight, deciding the events of this morning could easily be made into a movie called Attack of the Crazed Electrical Appliances. As both girls started walking to class, Bellassini's mind was racing, trying to work out a way she could possibly call her dad. I got it, squealed Bellassini. Got what? Responded Gemma. The library. It's got an old direct wire connection to the internet. You're joking, responded Gemma in disbelief. Nobody ever goes to the library to use the internet. Besides, the computer in the library must be 100 years old. It probably doesn't even work anymore. I have to try, responded Bellassini. Dad got called in to work last night, so he knows nothing about all the electrical problems at home. After a little discussion, it was decided Gemma would rush ahead to the first class and cover for Bellassini while she dashed to the library, where she would try to crank up the old computer. Well, if there is one person who might be able to get the ancient computer working, I guess it's you, Sini, proudly pronounced Gemma. Let's do it, girl. After a quick run through the corridors, Bellassini arrived at the library, only to be greeted by Miss Crabtree, the librarian, standing at the door. Miss Crabtree was nearly 80, and she detested mobile phones and computers. She told every new student nothing good would ever come from using them. She thought they were the work of the devil. She blamed every misfortune of the modern world on these technologies, telling all who would listen how good things were in her day without them. She was also the librarian way back when Bellassini's father attended Montville High School. Computers were pretty new in those days, but even then, her dad was demonstrating his genius for these new technologies. Miss Crabtree would always tell Bellassini, nothing good will ever come of your father while he continues to play around with computers for a job. It did not matter how many times Bellassini tried to show Miss Crabtree how much information and knowledge you could access with them. She would always just turn her back and walk off, muttering that they will just deaden your brain. In a small corner of the library, there was a resource centre where students could use the one and only school's computer. It was installed long before Bellassini started school. Nobody ever used it now because it was just too old and slow. Besides, Miss Crabtree would always make it very difficult for any student to use their computer or mobile phone in the library. This particular morning, Bellassini was in too much of a hurry to worry about the crab, as the students affectionately called her. So she politely said hello and walked straight on past her. Bellassini, you come here, barked Miss Crabtree gruffly. Yes, Miss Crabtree? Isn't it a bit early for you to be in the library? She continued. Shouldn't you be in class? But Miss Crabtree, there is a special chat room discussion on William Shakespeare this morning, and it has already started. I need to use the library computer to join in. William Shakespeare? Miss Crabtree sighed knowledgeably. Now there's a great man. Well, you better hurry then, child, as you do not want to miss that. Would you like to join in, Miss Crabtree? No, child, puffed Miss Crabtree. I have a lot more important things to do. You make sure you work quietly. Yes, miss, mumbled Bellassini, turning to continue her journey to the resource centre. The old computer was covered with a thick layer of dust, which Bellassini had to brush off before she could get to the keyboard. The computer was very, very old. Luckily, however, Bellassini's father had had a similar one when she was a small child. She had played hundreds of games on it, so she had a pretty good idea how to get the old machine going again. Switching on the power, the old machine sounded like a broken-down aeroplane trying to take off as old hard drives slowly came to life, one by one. "Great, it's working," mumbled Bellassini under her breath. "Now let's see if this old internet connection is working." Typing in a few commands, she was able to bring up the internet, and with a few more, she was finally connected with her father at the bank. "Happy birthday, Pumpkin," were his first words. "Thanks, Dad. I missed you this morning." The father apologized, explaining that someone had sent a computer virus to the bank at exactly 12 o'clock last night. It had come in as a happy birthday message and was now attacking all the records and files of the bank. The owner of the bank, Mr. Ritchie, insisted he come into work immediately or else. "So have you fixed it?" "I wish," anxiously replied her father. "I'm afraid this one is unlike any virus I have ever seen before. It is constantly changing. It is acting as if it's got a mind of its own." "You will come home for my birthday tonight, won't you, Dad?" "I hope so, Pumpkin. However, if this virus gets into the accounts of the townspeople, all will be lost for the entire town. Mr. Ritchie disconnected our backup systems last month to try and save some money. I told him this would happen, but he wouldn't listen. Luckily, I have..." Halfway through his explanation of the situation, the old computer screen began to flicker and lose sound. "Dad, there seems to be a glitch with our connection. Hello, Dad? Dad, are you there?" Bellassini called out louder and louder, frantically pressing various keys on the keyboard in an effort to fix the problem. "I need to tell you what happened at home this morning." Then all of a sudden the old screen went blank, leaving just 3 words displayed: "Happy birthday, glitch." "This just can't be," shouted Bellassini at the top of her voice. Miss Crabtree immediately started to shuffle towards the resource area, huffing and puffing. "Bellassini, was that you who just shouted in my library?" I'm sorry, Miss Crabtree," replied Bellassini. "But I was joining in the virtual play that was being staged by the group, and my lines were, 'To be or not to be, that is the question,'" shouted Bellassini once again. "I guess I got carried away." To be or not to be. That is one of Shakespeare's most famous lines. "You were in the play," continued Miss Crabtree. "Oh, yes, miss," replied Bellassini. All right then. For a minute there I thought you must have been playing a game or something foolish like that." "Oh, no, miss. I would never do that," replied Bellassini innocently, heading for the library door. Halfway to the door, her mobile phone started playing a tune. It was a message from Gemma. "Sini, where are you? Phones are working and class is starting. Hurry." "What was that?" huffed Miss Crabtree in Bellassini's direction. "I have no idea, Miss Crabtree. Maybe your radio is up too loud." "Oh," grumbled a rather embarrassed Miss Crabtree, scratching her head. "But I don't have a radio." Bellassini's first class was computer science, her favourite subject. She loved learning new things on her computer. Her teacher, Mr. McGram, had attended Montville High School the same years as her father, and they had remained good friends ever since. Miss Crabtree's unexpected lecture in the library had delayed her arrival to the first class. However, she knew Mr. McGram would understand. "I'm sorry, Mr. McGram," pleaded Bellassini, rushing to her usual seat at the front of the class. "I was delayed at the library." "You were delayed at the library?" inquired Mr. McGram, with a smile across his face. "You didn't attempt to use your computer there, did you, Bellassini?" "I'm afraid so, sir, replied Bellassini timidly. Well, in that case, I'm happy you made it at all, laughed Mr. McRam. Class, on this day 15 years ago, a very important event occurred in our town. Can anybody tell me what it was? The whole class replied, Happy birthday, Sini. Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing, giggled Bellassini, glancing coyly around the room. Thanks, everybody. As she sat down, the boy sitting alongside her leaned across and whispered, Hey, Sini, did the crab bite? It was David, a handsome young man who, among other things, was the high school president of the local Environmental and Climate Change Action Group, of which Bellassini was a very active member. They had been good friends for many years. However, when it came to the subject of computers, there was a fierce but friendly rivalry between them. No, but I don't think I should go back there for a while, replied Bellassini. So, are you and Gemma going to the arcade after school today to watch me beat your high score on Dragon Prince? Confidently inquired David. In your dreams, laughed Bellassini. But today I can't. My mum's organising a special dinner for my birthday. Sorry. David hated the fact that Bellassini, a girl, may have been better than him when it came to computer games. Her unbeaten high score on Dragon Prince, which was the latest and greatest game at the arcade, was a painful reminder of Bellassini's amazing computer skills. He spent many hours at the arcade trying to beat her score, all to no avail. Bellassini thought it was just a crazy boy thing, but still, she did enjoy the attention. Mr. McRam suddenly projected his voice loudly towards the whole class. So class, today is the day you have to hand in your final assignments. Have we all finished them? He was very proud of all his students, as they had always scored very high marks in the national exams. But, much to his disappointment, he had never taught the top student of the country. This was his wish and lifetime dream. Most of the other teachers and students thought it was a pipe dream. Montville High was a small town school with very few resources, especially when it came to computers. The winners of the national exam had always been from large, well-equipped and funded private colleges. This year, however, he just knew Bellassini could do it. She was the brightest computer student that he had ever taught. If ever he had a chance to produce the #1 student in the country, this was the year. Class, what I want you to do this morning is to download your assignments off your laptops into my folder on the school network, Mr. McRam instructed. Any questions? Then let's get started. The clatter of keys soon filled the room as students began to transfer their assignments to the main school server. Suddenly, the room filled with shouts of disbelief as one by one in quick succession, each student's computer began to flicker and crash. What's the problem? Asked Mr. McRam. There seems to be a glitch or virus in the school's network, somebody shouted from the back of the class. Let me have a look, bellowed Mr. McRam across the room as he hurried to one of the students' computers. Just as he got there, the computer went blank, leaving just 3 words on the screen. Happy birthday, glitch. Mr. McRam quickly typed in a few commands, but there was no response from the computer. Everybody disconnect from the network now, he bellowed once more across the room. But it was too late. One by one, each computer displayed the same message. He quickly rebooted one of the students' computers and began to type in a few instructions to check its programs. He did the same on 2 others before finally shaking his head in disbelief. I'm afraid, class, we have all picked up some type of computer virus, which seems to have wiped out our hard drives. There was a stunned silence among the students. Everyone had lost their final assignment. Mr. McRam spent some more time trying to repair the virus, but it was to no avail. Finally, he turned to the class and asked, "Has everyone got a backup of their assignments at home or in the cloud?" All but a few students replied, "No," in loud disbelief. Bellassini had backed up her assignment the previous evening and was just about to raise her hand when that little voice inside her head that we all hear from time to time advised her not to. Some people call it their conscience, while others just call it the little voice in their head. However, on this day, Bellassini heard the voice loud and clear. "My conscience is right," she thought to herself. "How can I raise my hand when all my friends have lost their assignment?" "Mr. McGram," called out Bellassini, "my dad was called into the bank last night to repair a virus that is attacking their computer files. Maybe it's the same one, and just maybe he has already fixed the glitch." A dejected Mr. Ram slowly stood. "I hope you're right, Bellassini, because right now we all need a miracle." As he walked out the door to telephone her father, Bellassini thought to herself, what sort of person could be so mean to name a virus the happy birthday virus on her birthday? After a few minutes, Mr. McRam returned. "I'm afraid I have some bad news for everyone. The virus is much worse than I thought. It appears that it won't be able to be repaired by tomorrow. So I'm afraid you will all have to redo your assignment." He went on to explain he had also spoken to the National Education Board about the problem, and they had allowed another week for students to redo their assignment. However, only the assignments that were submitted by tomorrow would be eligible for the National Student Computer Awards. "Will anybody be able to submit their assignments by tomorrow?" he asked, turning in Bellassini's direction. Bellassini glanced around the room to find only 2 hands raised, so again she decided to leave hers down. "Okay then, it would appear we all have a lot of work to do, so we had all best get started," announced Mr. McRam. Bellassini could see that Mr. McRam was feeling a sense of loss on behalf of all the students. However, this was the year he thought one of his students was going to win the National Computer Awards, which would see his lifelong dream fulfilled. A dream that was crushed in a single second by a computer glitch. Who could be so cruel, thought Bellassini. The rest of the school day dragged on. The school network remained down, and rumours began to emerge that nearly all the businesses in the town had been affected by the same virus. Chaos was gripping the small township of Montville as telephone and electricity service began to fall victim to a network glitch. There was no doubt this had been the most horrible birthday Bellassini had ever experienced. She was glad to be heading home and was looking forward to stopping in at Gran's house. If there was one person who could cheer her up, it was Gran. From the moment Gran opened her front door, Bellassini started a very animated explanation of the events of her day. The kitchen appliances, my computer at the library, the computers in my class, and Dad's computers at the bank. It was awful, Gran. Who could do such things on my birthday? Glitch, responded Gran. I think it's a little more than a glitch, Gran. No, Princess, laughed Gran. I don't mean you have a little glitch in your computer. I mean Glitch is back. Glitch? Quickly responded Bellassini. Glitch is a real person? Princess, sit down and I will explain everything. But first things first, happy birthday. and may all your dreams and wishes come true from this moment on." Gran reached into her apron pocket and removed an old brass key, which looked as if it belonged in one of her fantastic tales. She used it to open the bottom drawer of a very old chest in the corner of the room. Inside was a small wooden box, covered with unusual carvings. "Today is a very special day, Princess," said Gran, lifting the box from the drawer. "You are the first girl in my family to come of age. So, I have 2 gifts for you today. The first present is easy, as I will give it to you. However, the second you must find and take yourself. I cannot help you. Gran, I could never take anything from your house without you first giving it to me," responded Bellasini. "But what you will take would never have been mine to give," replied Gran. "If you can find it, it was always yours." Bellasini was totally confused, but thought that Gran must have been playing some fantastic new game to try and take her mind off the terrible events of a day. "What do you mean, if I can find it? Don't you know where it is, Gran?" Gran just laughed. "I have searched every day for the last 50 years, but I have never been able to find it. But I know it's here." "What's here?" asked Bellasini. "I'm not quite sure, Princess. What I do know is that if it's here, you will find it on your 15th birthday." Bellasini's eyes scanned the room. "Gran, after 50 years of searching, you would surely have found anything that was hidden here." "It's here, Princess," replied Gran, joining Bellasini in scanning the room. "But as I said, only the person that it belongs to will ever be able to find it." Gran once again turned her attention to the small box she was holding. "Your grandfather gave me this many years ago and asked me to give it to the first female child born in our family on her 15th birthday. Since that day, I have never let it out of my sight or opened it. Happy birthday, Princess." "Wow, Gran, this is the most exciting present I've ever received in my whole life. Do you think I should open it now?" "Your grandfather told me you would know what to do with it when the time came," replied Gran, rubbing her frail hand across the top of the box. "So it's up to you, Princess." "Gran, I would like to make a wish before I open it. Will you help me?" Bellasini closed her eyes and placed the hands inside Gran's before slowly guiding them to the top of the wooden box. "I wish, oh how I wish, that one day I will meet my grandfather, so I can thank him for my very mysterious present." With that, Bellasini opened the box, which had the most beautiful necklace she had ever seen inside. A single teardrop crystal attached to a fine golden chain. The outstanding feature of the crystal was not its size or its clarity, but the fact that it sparkled so brightly in Gran's dimly lit house, as if it was a tiny star. Bellasini reached in and carefully picked up the necklace. "Have you ever seen anything so beautiful, Gran?" "Never, Princess," replied Gran, reaching over to help Bellasini try it on. "I don't think it's a necklace, Gran," said Bellasini, handing the piece to her. "I think it's to be worn like a tiara around my head." The glowing crystal resting on Bellasini's forehead bathed her face with its warm light, giving her the appearance of a true princess. Gran fell back into her chair, stunned by the radiant beauty that now stood before her. "I feel like a princess," excitedly shouted Bellasini. "You are a princess," replied Gran. "Oh, Gran, I love you so much. And thank you, Grandpa, wherever you are," called out Bellasini, blowing a kiss toward the heavens. "Now it is time for you to find your second gift," continued Gran from her rocking chair. But Gran, this is more than enough, Bellassini replied, admiring her new tiara in the mirror. Just humour an old lady and look around the room. Something here can only be found by you. Okay then. Let me see now. Bellassini decided that Gran must have hidden something for a bit of a game on her birthday. She was always full of surprises. As she looked around the room, she saw the same old lamps, statues, pictures, chairs, curtains, cushions, and books. Bellassini had inspected everything in Gran's library hundreds of times. What could it be? Maybe it's a new book, she thought to herself. You've got me a new book, haven't you, Gran? If you say so, Princess, replied Gran, intently watching Bellassini's every move. Let me see now, sighed Bellassini, bringing her forefinger and thumb to her chin. Which one could it be? There were thousands of books on hundreds of shelves all round the room. How could she ever find a single book hidden among so many? Then all of a sudden, she caught sight of a book that seemed to reflect the light of her new tiara. She turned her head away and the glow disappeared. Every time she looked in the direction of this one particular book, it lit up as if it was covered in gold. Aha, she thought, Gran has wrapped my present in gold paper, so I would find it. I've found it, Gran, shouted Bellassini, moving toward the book. Oh my gosh, Princess, you have, shrieked Gran, raising herself from the chair, only to fall straight back in. Then it must be true. What's true, Gran? Asked Bellassini, removing the book from the shelf. No one has ever laid eyes on the book before, whispered Gran. Up until this very moment, it was thought to be a myth. I have read much about it both here and in Virtasia, but I never thought I would ever get to see it. Look, Princess, there is no gap where you just removed it from. It didn't take up any space on the shelf. It is as if it was never there. Bellassini looked toward the shelf where she had just removed the book. Sure enough, there was no gap. How can that be possible, Gran? I think you better sit down, Princess. It is time to tell you the story of my life. Gran paused before continuing. Or should I say, I think it is time to begin the tale of yours. Many years ago, when I was not much older than you are now, I worked as a lab assistant for a brilliant scientist named Einstein. During that time, I was constantly amazed by his ideas and experiments to improve life on Earth. His last and most secret experiment was a machine that he thought would demonstrate there were no bounds to time, space, or other worlds. Everything was going fantastically well with the experiment until they used one of his earlier discoveries, E equals mc squared, to construct a nuclear bomb, which had the potential to destroy life on Earth. Over the next few years, he watched in horror as the world made bigger and bigger bombs. He lost faith in the world during those years. So, fearing that the same powerful men might use his new invention to enter and destroy other worlds, he decided to stop all work on the project. One morning, he came into the laboratory and told us to dismantle the time-space machine he had built after we had finished lunch that day. I was very young and thought it would be silly to end the project before we had at least tried it. My love of adventure was like yours is now, Princess. So, fearing I would never get another chance, I hid until all the staff had left for lunch and started the machine. As it slowly came to life, it filled the laboratory with all the colours of a rainbow. At first, I was frightened, but the warm lights of the machine appeared to be beckoning me to step through the gateway it had created. So I did. As I stepped through, all the physical objects within the laboratory seemed to melt away. For a second, there was nothing. Everything, and I mean everything, had disappeared. Then, in a brilliant burst of colour and light, new objects began to take shape around me. Objects of such colour and beauty, the likes of which I had only ever seen before in my most vivid dreams. So you were transported to a dream world, Gran, interrupted Bellassini. No, Princess, it was very real. The kingdom of Virtasia. I enjoyed thousands of wonderful adventures there for what seemed to be about 10 years. However, when I returned to reality, for some strange reason, only a few seconds had passed. Wow, that's fantastic, Gran. Tell me everything that happened there. Please, please, pleaded Bellassini. It would take me a lifetime to tell you it all, Princess. Besides, I have already told you much of what happened there in my stories each day. However, what I have never told you is that I eventually met and married a handsome young prince who was later crowned the king of Virtasia. So Grandpa was a king, and you, Gran, you were a queen, and you, my beautiful granddaughter, are a princess. Her Royal Highness, Crown Princess Bellassini of Virtasia. So why did you come back, Gran? Why didn't you stay with Grandpa? Asked Bellassini. The look on Gran's face quickly turned to one of despair. Grandpa had a powerful ambassador named Glitch, who was his advisor on all matters before I met him. He became very jealous when the king began to discuss affairs of the kingdom with me rather than him. He was a very crafty man who was smart enough to realize the only thing I really missed in reality was my mother. So one day, Glitch tricked me into believing that he had received an urgent message passed through the gateway from Professor Einstein, saying that my mother was dying of grief and asking for my return. Tears began to form in Gran's beautiful green eyes as she continued. I hadn't seen my mother for 10 years, and I missed her so much. She was not very well when I left reality, so even though in my head I knew Glitch was probably up to no good, my heart left me no other choice than to return to reality. I knew if I told the king, he would worry about my safety and talk me out of returning, so I mapped out a plan to slip back through the gateway during the night without anyone knowing. I thought once I got home, I could convince my mother to return through the porthole with me to Virtasia. So, that evening, I got changed back into my old work clothes and slipped out of the palace. The only one who knew I was leaving was my good friend Zack, continued Gran, looking at an old pencil drawing of a small bird hanging above the fireplace. Who's Zack? Asked Bellassini. He's the most mischievous little bird you will ever meet in your entire life, replied Gran with a smile. But he was also my most loyal and trusted friend. So what happened next? I went back to the exact spot in Virtasia where the machine had delivered me 10 years earlier and stepped through the shimmering portal. Virtasia instantly disappeared like a dream that never was, and I was returned to the cold grey surroundings of the empty laboratory in reality. However, there was not a single worker anywhere to be seen. I didn't realise it then, but time had stood still in reality while I was gone. I knew something was wrong, but I was so concerned about getting home to see my mother that I did not even give it a second thought. I rushed home as fast as my feet could carry me. As I opened the front door and saw my mother, I couldn't hold back my tears. She, of course, wondered what all the fuss was about. It was only then I learnt that it was still the very same day as when I had left for work 10 years earlier. "So why didn't you just go back?" asked Bellassini. "I got to work very early the next day, but it was too late. Einstein had already dismantled the gateway and destroyed its plans. No one at the lab, not even Einstein, believed my story. They all thought it was a crazy dream. So they refused to rebuild it for me. After a few weeks, I realized that I would never see my husband or Virtasia again, although sometimes I can still catch a glimpse of them in my deepest dreams." "So what has this book got to do with all this?" asked Bellassini, glancing down at its cover. "Book?" she laughed. "The name of this beautiful golden book is Book?" "It's much more than a book," replied Gran, rubbing her frail hand across the brilliant gold cover. "Legend has it that this book is a soothsayer, containing the knowledge and wisdom of all things, from all worlds, from the very beginning to the very end of time." While Gran continued talking, Bellassini tried to open the book. However, no matter how hard she tried, it would not open. "Gran, how am I ever going to read this book if I can't get the darn thing open?" Gran moved closer and explained, "Book is not here to be read like a normal book. Its role is to provide the answer to any question its owner sought to ask." "So who is its owner?" asked Bellassini, holding the book up with both hands. They both stood in silent disbelief as the book drifted out of her hands and began to float unaided in front of them. Slowly, the cover opened to reveal written inside, "This book belongs to the princess born of both worlds." "That's you, princess," excitedly exclaimed Gran, glancing down at the book. "But I'm not a princess born of both worlds, Gran. I'm just a princess in your eyes," responded Bellassini hesitantly. "And you will always be a princess in my eyes. However, you are the granddaughter of the King of Virtasia and myself, who was born in reality. That surely makes you a princess born of both worlds." "Maybe you are right, Gran, but what difference does it make? How will I ever get to see Virtasia?" sighed Bellassini. "The gateway has been destroyed." With that question, the pages of the thick book began to turn once more. Over and over they flicked, before finally stopping at the center 2 pages. There, on the center 2 pages, were detailed pictures of 2 jewel-encrusted golden bracelets. The bracelets on the left had the word Virtasia elaborately engraved inside, while the identical bracelet on the right-hand page simply had the word Reality. As Bellassini and Gran stood admiring the pictures, the pages started to dissolve away, revealing 2 exact copies of the bracelets where the pictures had been. However, these were not replicas, they were real. "Oh my gosh, Gran! How could that happen?" shrieked Bellassini. "Am I dreaming or what?" "No, princess, you're not dreaming. I think Book wants you to have them." Bellassini carefully picked up each bracelet. The one engraved Virtasia she put on her left wrist. The one engraved Reality on the right. "Wow, they are so beautiful. But Mr. Book, I have only just met you. I cannot accept these expensive bracelets from you on my birthday. What would I do with them?" As soon as Bellassini had finished asking the question, the book began a strange transformation. First the pages returned, then the bookmark, a long brown cord with a thick shaggy tassel at its end, suddenly stood straight up out of the open pages. Bellassini and Gran stood speechless as a small pair of spectacles suddenly took shape on the bauble atop the now upside-down tassel. After cleaning the little glasses with a couple of strands of his tassel, the rather odd-looking but remarkably adorable shaggy little imp began to undertake what appeared to be a set of morning stretches. He was acting as if he had been awoken from a very long, deep sleep. It soon became obvious this shaggy little imp was actually the small character of the book. After the impish character had finished his morning stretches, still attached to the pages of the book by his cord, he moved forward to take a closer look at Bellassini and Gran. As the small figure caught sight of Bellassini, it bowed for a second, as if to acknowledge she was royalty. Then the pages began to turn once more. The bespectacled shaggy imp glanced down at each and every page as they quickly turned before him. Suddenly, the pages stopped and the small figure looked straight up at Bellassini, as if to beckon her to read what was written on the page. Bellassini cautiously took a step closer and read aloud what was written on the page. When the two worlds collide, the princess's wish will decide. Bellassini repeated the words over and over again, trying to work out their hidden meaning. When the two worlds collide, the princess's wish will decide. What do you think that means, Gran? Asked the very puzzled Bellassini. I'm not quite sure, Princess, but you do have the name of each world engraved inside your bracelet. I've got it. When the two worlds collide must mean when the two bracelets are touched together, shrieked an excited Bellassini. And I think the words, the princess's wish will decide, means that I should wish which world I want to be in. What do you think, Gran? I'm not quite sure, Princess, but I guess it's worth a try, hesitantly responded Gran. Am I right, book? The shaggy little imp of the book madly shook up and down as if it was trying to nod its head. This is totally crazy, but after the day I've had so far, what have I got to lose? Sighed Bellassini. So closing her eyes and clashing the two bracelets together, she cautiously uttered the words, I wish, oh how I wish I was in Virtasia. A colourful stream of light emerged from the bracelet and began to snake its way through the room, over bookcases, between statues and under chairs. It wanted to inspect everything in the room before returning to completely envelop Bellassini. Spinning like a tornado, the colourful stream of light gently lifted her from the floor before exploding in a blinding flash of colour. Bellassini, somewhat dazed by the unexpected burst of light, blinked in disbelief. Gran's dimly lit library, where she had been standing seconds earlier, was gone. Bellassini now found herself standing in the middle of a forest, unlike any she had ever seen before. It was dreamlike. The sounds, colours, plants and birds were all picture perfect. Bellassini knelt down and touched the amazing blue water that flowed in a small stream right next to her, to verify that this was not part of some fantastic dream. As she did, she caught a glimpse of her own reflection. Oh my gosh, what has happened to me? She was no longer dressed in the casual jeans and t-shirts she had worn to school that day. Her shoulders and arms were now covered with golden armour, decorated with the same strange symbols and writings which had covered the box containing her tiara. Around her waist was a finely woven gold belt, which was also covered by the same mysterious symbols. She had no weapons, but it was clear that the rainbow of light had somehow transformed her from the schoolgirl she was in reality into a magnificent warrior princess of Virtasia. Wow, what a buzz! Where am I? She thought out loud. With a puff of white smoke, Book with his tassel standing upright reappeared, opened in front of her, revealing a single word: Virtasia. "Oh my gosh," shouted Bellasini. "This is really freaky. What's all the fuss about?" squawked a little squeaky voice from behind her. Spinning around, she caught sight of the most amazing purple bird, wearing a bright yellow jacket and a back-to-front baseball cap. The cap had a propeller on top, which the bird seemed to use to hover in front of her like a helicopter. "Who are you, and why are you wearing the armour of the royal family of Virtasia?" shrieked the little bird. "You talk?" replied Bellasini. "Well, the cat didn't get my tongue, if that's what you mean," cheekily replied the bird, who had now perched himself comfortably atop Book, still floating in front of the princess. "Although he did have a good try once," the bird continued, rubbing his little wing across his beak. Book's tassel irately moved to one side and stared intently at this strange little bird which had been rude enough to sit on him. "Is that your neck?" curiously asked the bird, scanning up and down the length of the cord that attached the little imp to the book. "It makes E.T.'s neck look stumpy. Here's one for you. Why do giraffes have such long necks?" The bird waited for a second before continuing. "You give in?" "Because their heads are so far away." Even Bellasini could not help but laugh at such a silly joke. However, Book did not find this attempt at humour the least bit funny, and continued to glare straight at this impish little bird. Then, without warning, Book disappeared in a puff of smoke, causing the bird to tumble swiftly towards the ground. He was only just saved from a nasty landing by Bellasini's quick reactions. "You must be Zack," giggled Bellasini, lifting him up to take a closer look. "Gran has told me all about you." "Gran? Who is Gran?" responded the little bird, once again using his propeller to hover in front of Bellasini. "And more importantly, who are you?" "Bellasini, but my friends just call me Sini." I can't be 100% sure, but I think my gran came to Virtasia many years ago and married the king, or something like that." "Your gran is the queen? Where is she?" responded Zack, searching behind Bellasini for any sign of the queen. "She's still at home in reality." Bellasini explained all that had occurred at Gran's house. She told Zack how she had found Book in Gran's library, and it was he who had given her the bracelets, which somehow allowed her to travel between the two worlds. She finished by telling Zack that Gran thought a person named Glitch, living in Virtasia, may be trying to ruin her family and friends' lives by sending computer viruses to reality. Pacing up and down on a fallen log, Zack explained to Bellasini how upset the king was when the queen disappeared. He immediately stepped down from the throne and appointed Ambassador Glitch to take over ruling the kingdom, while he travelled to the far corners of Virtasia in search of the lost queen. "He is a very wicked man, princess," continued Zack, shaking his head. "He has brought only darkness and despair to Virtasia, and it would appear he now wishes to impose this same doom and gloom on reality." "But how did you get here, princess?" "Before the queen disappeared, she talked of a strange machine that had somehow allowed her to travel from her world to Virtasia." "I'm not quite sure," replied Bellasini, scratching her head. "The machine no longer exists. All I did was tap these two bracelets together and wish to be in Virtasia." No sooner had she finished speaking than Book reappeared in a puff of smoke, causing Zack to lose his footing and tumble backward off the log. Book's baubles stood up out of his pages and leaned over the log to view Zack lying head first on the ground. The bobble and tassels then began to wobble and shake in a very strange way as Zack tried desperately to climb back up onto the log. "Book, that was not very nice," scolded Bellassini. "If I didn't know better, I would guess you were laughing at poor Zack's fall." Book immediately ceased his giggling actions and turned to face Bellassini as if nothing had happened. "So what have you come to tell me?" Book beckoned Bellassini to read the words on his open pages. He explained she had wished to be in Virtasia as she touched the two bracelets together. If she wanted to return, she only had to wish it while again touching the bracelets together. "Oh my gosh," shrieked Bellassini. "I forgot I left Gran alone in her library. She's not very well at the moment, so I should return to reality as soon as I can. Why don't you come back with me, Zack? It would make Gran ever so happy to see you again." "See the Queen again? Is it safe?" asked Zack, rubbing his little chin. Bellassini posed the question to Book, who slowly lifted one corner of his cover, as if in deep thought. The words, "Zack, do you wish to travel with Bellassini back to reality?" appeared on his pages. "Of course I wish to go with the princess to visit the Queen." On hearing Zack's answer, Book's bobble nodded vigorously in Bellassini's direction. "Well, let's give it a go," shouted Bellassini. She immediately stood up, raised her hands in the air, and clashed the two bracelets together. "I wish, oh how I wish, Zack and I were back in reality." As the colourful beam of light once again emerged from the bracelets, Zack started to have second thoughts about his decision. "Hey, maybe we should think about this a little longer." But before Bellassini could do anything to stop it, she found herself back in Gran's library, in the clothes she had worn to school that day. What's happened to Zack? Is Book to blame? Would Gemma believe Bellassini about Virtasia? What awaits Bellassini in the enchanted forest? And who is this little girl? All these questions and more will be answered in episode 2 of Virtasian Tales.